I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone who's been watching our videos. My goal is to keep you informed about the latest developments in the aviation world. As some of you may be aware, there's currently a situation unfolding between Israel and Iran, so I would advise you to avoid that airspace if possible. Today's video will focus on providing you with an update on Air India. Captain Steve, Gary, and many other experts are working diligently to analyze every possible cause of a recent incident. As we speak, they're considering 3 potential causes: dual engine failure, vapor lock, and electrical failure. Let's dive in and explore what our experienced pilots have to say on the matter. These guys are doing an extraordinary job keeping us updated with the latest news. Let's watch this video and discuss it in the comments below.
I am not going to speculate. I am simply going to present some of these facts, which, by the way, all are public and will be in the link below. I am going to allow people to draw their own conclusions without any speculation on mine. Imagine this sequence. You're taking off, dual AC bus loss, right? Engines fail or are online, but the AC is disconnected. The TRUs drop offline. The DC essential bus goes dark, okay? The ELMS takes a second too long to switch the battery on. Or you simply did not get enough power quickly transitioned from deploying from the RAT. Either way, the fuel shutoff valves get no power for 1 second. They snap shut. The RAT deploys, which still takes about 2 seconds, begins restoring AC power. Basic controls are given back to the pilots, but it's too late. The engines are flamed out from fuel loss, and we all know the rest, what happens. I don't want to make any assumptions, but if I'm asking you in your honest opinion, what sounds more probable? That, a software glitch and a problem that is known with all these Boeing issues? Or is it because it's contaminated fuel? I'm simply pointing out this evidence. Do with it what you will. I am just bringing this information, and I want to know your thoughts.
When new information came out, or we needed to update or refine something, and so we're going to update and refine in this third installment in what we've been talking about. Looks like, and a lot of people are coming to a consensus on it, looks like it was a dual engine failure. Now, the RAT will deploy for other reasons on a 787. It'll deploy for a major electrical failure, and it'll deploy for a major hydraulic failure. Those two things in and of themselves don't cause the engines to stop running. Here's what does cause the engine or engines to stop running. All right, it's either air or it's fuel. Let's talk about air first. Those jet engines need a steady stream of air coming into them. When it's hot, it bogs down a little bit. It complicates things coming into the engines. It was wicked hot in India that day. I've seen some METAR reports that it was 43 degrees Celsius. That's about 110 degrees, or just short of 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Now remember, the temperature is taken somewhere near the tower. When you taxi out to the runway, and if it's an asphalt runway, it's even hotter than that 43 degrees. So put a pin in that, because we'll come back to that discussion in a minute. So airflow, right? So now the air is flowing through the engines, and when that airplane rotates, is the airflow interrupted? No, it's just redirected a little bit. And was it sufficient enough redirection to cause something that's called a compressor stall? Certainly that is worthy of a discussion. I've had a lot of people ask me, was it a compressor stall? I don't know. It could have been a compressor stall. Compressor stalls generally don't cause an engine to fail. They're very distinctive, and you would generally see some evidence out the back of the engine, like rings of fire coming out. What happens with a compressor stall? The airflow is kind of interrupted through the engine, and it kind of almost like a backfiring in your car. It's not the same, but it sounds like a backfiring car. It goes bang, 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 and the airplane would shudder real hard. We don't hear any of that in the audio. We didn't get any eyewitness from the ground. I mean, people far away would hear that bang, bang, bang. And if it was happening in both engines at the same time, you would really hear it. You might see flames coming out the back of the engines. And it's not necessarily that the engines would fail altogether. They would keep producing some thrust. All right, but that's a possibility. So that's the air side of things. Now, there are 3 things that could cause fuel starvation to an engine. All right. And as the same way we defined the airplane stop flying as the wings stop producing lift, power loss could be one of the things that caused that. The engines could fail for airflow interruption or fuel interruption. The fuel stopped, or the fuel was starved to the engine. There are three ways that could happen. I'm going to mention the first one, and we're going to put this first one in the dustbin of history and never bring it up again. Every time I get to the gate and I park the airplane, I starve the engines of fuel to shut them down. We take the fuel control levers and we take them from run and we put them to shut off. That's one of the ways that you can starve an engine of fuel. Do I believe that that happened? No. Listen to me very carefully. I think anybody that suggests that, that's kind of a kooky theory. I'm just simply explaining it as one of the possible ways that fuel could be starved to an engine. I'm not saying that happened, and we're going to take that now and we're going to put it in the dustbin of history, and we're not going to come back to that. The other two now are much more plausible, and you're going to put a big P probable or a little p probable. That's your choice. I'm kind of split evenly between both of these, and one is one we vapor lock is. Okay. Again, you can big P, small p with vapor lock if you want. There's going to be lots of strong opinions about vapor lock, but we can't exclude vapor lock completely. Now, a lot of folks, let me answer the possible objections about vapor lock before I get into what it is. Some of the objections are, oh, that only happens in piston engines, or that only happens in carbureted engines. It doesn't make any difference what type of engine we're talking about. This is something that happens to the fuel before it reaches the engine. So it can happen in a turbine engine. It can happen in a recip. It can happen in a piston engine, carbureted or non-carbureted. It can happen in every type of engine because it's something that happens to the fuel. Now, I've got a great article here. I want to read it to you. I got to put my glasses on because I've been going for about 20 hours straight. My eyes are suffering. But this article is entitled Engine Vapor Lock in Aviation, Symptoms and Prevention Strategies. And it's written by Neil Glazier. And we'll put a link to the entire article in the description below. But I like this article because it's very thorough. It's written in layman's terms, so it's easy to understand. So if you're not a pilot or an engineer or professional, you can read this and understand what vapor lock is. And a big part of what we try to do on this channel is inform and educate so you feel really reassured about flying in airplanes. The more you know about airplanes and how they operate, the more likely you are to get in one and go flying because they really are safe. But here's what he says, all right? O'Neill writes this. He says, this is on the first page. I think it's the second paragraph. He says, vapor lock is a phenomenon that can occur when fuel in the supply lines turns to vapor. So you've got liquid fuel. Remember I mentioned that earlier? It can vaporize. Water can vaporize. When it gets to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, it turns into steam. It vaporizes. Fuel can do the same. It doesn't have to get nearly that hot, by the way. This ends up preventing the fuel pump from being able to deliver liquid fuel to the engine. So a lot of you are going to say, yeah, but those engines, those boost pumps are so strong and they provide boosted fuel to those engines. There's no way this could ever happen. All right, you probably want to give this a little p possibility. This guy is saying that even if the fuel pump is there, once the fuel itself vaporizes, doesn't make any difference how big a pump you have. You're trying to push vapor, not liquid fuel. That's the whole point. All right. Can this happen? Yeah. Did it happen? Again, this whole thing is 100 billion to 1, but just hang with me on this because you guys asked, you wanted an explanation of vapor lock. The next thing he says on the next page is this. I think it's bullet point number 2. This issue is more likely to happen in warm weather. That's important. Or at high altitude. He doesn't say and high altitude, he says or high altitude because of the reduced air pressure and increased fuel volatility. Now, there are a number of different types of fuels that you can put in airplanes. There is avgas, which is a gasoline type fuel. That's primarily for small airplanes, but it's very much like gasoline. And then there's jet fuel, and there's a whole bunch of different jet fuels. There's Jet A, Jet B, JP4, JP5. There's a whole bunch. That's more of a kerosene type fuel. One fuel, gasoline, has a higher flash point than kerosene does, but all fuel can vaporize given the right set of circumstances. So none of these are excluded from the realm of possibility. He goes on to say he's under what is vapor lock under the results. He says hard starts, failed starts, or even engine failure in extreme cases. So vapor lock can cause engine failure in extreme cases. And this case we're looking at in India is extreme. It falls into that category. This is why vapor lock is a big concern for pilots operating in hot weather or at high altitude. He goes on at the bottom, the next page to say, why does vapor lock happen? He's got 5 bullet points. Engine heat after shutdown. So maybe if there was a quick turnaround and the engines didn't cool down sufficiently enough, that could have been a contributing factor. Number 2, high ambient temperature. I've seen some METAR lines the day of the accident that said it was 43 degrees Celsius. That's almost 110 degrees Fahrenheit. On my airplane, there is a max fuel temperature, and that's 49 degrees Celsius. I can't operate that airplane if I get close to that 49 degrees Celsius. Why? Because of the potential for vapor lock, among other things. There are other things associated, but vapor lock is one of those. So there is an upper end temperature. So let's assume for a minute these pilots didn't reach that upper end temperature, but they were close to it. All right. Number 3, altitude effects. They were at sea level, so that's not a real big player. Fuel volatility. All those different jet fuels I mentioned to you, some are more susceptible to vapor locking than others, and we don't know what kind of fuel they got, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. And then quick turnaround flights is the final one. So let's assume for a minute that that airplane was sitting out there for a while. They had fueled it. The fuel going in generally is kind of cool when it goes in, but it was a hot day. It's beating down on those wings. The fuel probably warmed up. It's possible it warmed up. They taxi out under 43 degrees Celsius temperatures. Those engines are hot. They're producing heat. The heat's coming underneath the airplane, right? The heat always rises. So it's coming under those wing tanks and the center tank, and it's heating up the fuel. It's making it even warmer. They get out down to this extremely hot runway, and then they push up the power on those burners. Full blast, and you've got the engine now is under as much stress as it's ever going to be. It's producing as much heat as it's ever going to produce on top of that hot runway. All of the elements are there for a potential vapor lock scenario. So can we exclude vapor lock? I don't think so. I think it needs to be included in the discussion. If we were having a hangar conversation around the table, somebody'd bring that up and we'd say, yeah, it could have happened, right? And somebody'd say, well, that was 100 billion to 1. Yep, this whole thing was 100 billion to 1. Vapor lock in both engines at the same time. Yep, folks, if it happened in one, you know what? It could happen in the other. And it's kind of apparent at this point that whatever happened to the one, it did happen to the other.